All righty. What's going on, everybody? Good morning. Happy Thursday. And you're probably like, Taylor, where's the rest of the crew? Well, David's here, and that's the most important part. But Dan flew into Nashville, I think yesterday or today. He's doing some meetings, and then Jake can't be with us today. So it's just me hanging out with David. But hey, you know what? Let's just be honest. As long as I'm here, that's all that matters. Anyway, Dan and Jake are going to see that roll their eyes. But for those of you who tune in, welcome. This is a podcast called Unicorn Finders. And I want to tell you what it is, because if you Google the Unicorn Finders, it may come up with some weird stuff. So let me tell you what it is. Basically, this is a podcast. I was telling David this backstage. 3.5 years we've been doing it. And our focus is to highlight companies doing really cool shit you probably haven't heard of yet. And so as a pet owner myself, I have 2 pets. I have a corgi and a barn cat. I am very partial to what David and his team are building at VetVerifi, so I'm excited to dive in today. So again, if you watch this now, if you just say, hey, we'd love to hear from you. But if you want to keep lurking in the shadows virtually, I'm all about that, because I have a lot of people in my DMs about Unicorn Finders. So I know you're watching. You just don't like to comment, so that's okay. So David, let's give the people what they want, man. Just who are you? What do you do? What does VetVerifi do? And we'll just dive in.
Yeah, pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me on the show. My name is Dave Servodidio. I'm a co-founder of VetVerifi. We're a data and technology company in the pet care space. And what we do really simply is instant verified medical record sharing from veterinarian clinics to all of their pet care partners, everything from dog boarding to grooming, daycare, everything up through airports, hotels, apartment complexes. That's the technology that we enable, but the problem that we solve is a really common one. It's an everyday one. If you're listening in and you're a pet owner, you have probably experienced the pain of needing to bring your dog to boarding before family vacation. And to do so required you to produce medical records, right? Yep. To make sure the place that wherever you're going can attest that it's a safe environment, not only for your dog, but for all their other vacationers as well. And that process is an incredibly manual one today. There is no technology solution to connect your kennel to your clinic. And so all of it is paper driven. Yeah. The best thing, what the industry has sort of chosen to do up until this point, is to say, pet owner, we're going to force you to download your really crappy app from your vet clinic. That may or may not work. You may or may not want to download another thing on your phone. It's probably not real time. And so this whole industry is operating in the world of PDFs. And let me email you a PDF. Let me print a PDF. Let me mail it or fax a PDF. And so we just said, my gosh, there's a better way. Yeah. We're technologists, we're data entrepreneurs. There's a better way to better connect the actual clinic. And that's where all of this information lives, in their server-based system with the partners in real time. So when a pet gets scheduled for boarding before vacation, an instant verification happens. Yep, clear, this dog's good to go. They can check in, and the pet owner can be completely hands off. So that's the technology. That's the problem we solve.
So I'm really curious. Just so I love a good origin story. So can you talk about kind of where this idea came from? Obviously, you guys have a great pedigree, right? I think on the staff, from a leadership perspective, it's not like, a kid in a hoodie type of idea. And listen, a lot of kids in the hoodies have made a lot of money, but I'm just saying, you guys come from a pretty good pedigree. So you could talk about the OG story and where y'all came from.
Yeah, our background, we have 3 co-founders at VetVerifi, myself, Tim Ridgway, and Chris Lynn. The 3 of us come from the background of building and scaling data verification companies in various industries. Most recently, we were working for a company that did licensing credential verification for doctors and nurses. So same type of thing. When you
I was about to say literally the exact same type of thing.
When you go to your doctor, right, making sure that doctor has a license that's active and valid, and they're not committing fraud against the government. But the origin and some of the original idea came from employment and income screening, right? And there's so many, taking a look at so many different industries, whether it's licensing credential, whether it's employment and income. And the reality is, like, third-party verification technology is being adopted industry by industry by industry. And when you get into the world of like medical records, right? Veterinarian medicine is just a little behind in terms of where the technology is
I can't imagine.
in healthcare. And so just understanding the tuition of how other industries have adopted third-party verification processes,
Yeah.
and taking some of that tuition and bringing it to an industry that we are new to vet med when we started this company. We are not new to how to build a data company.
Sure. And I think that's awesome. So we talked about backstage, right? I think a lot of people, and I think this may be some words of encouragement to some founders out there. You were like, we were like, there's got to be something out there like this, right? So can you talk about that? Maybe some words of encouragement to entrepreneurs who may be sitting on an idea and think it's already out there.
I'd say, yeah, gosh, you're speaking my language. We solved a problem that we experienced personally. I'm a dog owner. I have 2 dogs, and I deal with.
I got to ask, what type of dogs, right?
Oh man, I have an old German Shepherd named Bruce after Bruce Springsteen.
I love it.
And then I have a Cavapoo puppy named Pickle.
That's awesome. Bruce and Pickle.
Yeah, if you're listening, you live in East Nashville. Yes, it's the same Pickle that just escapes and is running around the city all the time.
Stop! Are you serious?
It's the same Pickle. He's well known in our neighborhood at this point.
My goodness!
So I have 2 dogs. Right, we experienced the pain personally, and it just seems like this crazy idea, right? Like, my gosh, what if we did instant record sharing for when you book an appointment? Like, how can your records just show up there? It's just, there's a lot of folks that think like, my gosh, that should just be a thing that exists.
Right.
I shouldn't have to be printing off paper or calling my vet to look for records. And so the words of encouragement I would say is like, if you experience a problem like that and you're like, gosh, I bet somebody would have solved this, make a couple of phone calls.
Yeah.
And so my sister-in-law is a veterinarian. She owns a clinic. She's the lead DVM there. And I called her and just said, is this something y'all face at your clinic? And that she was like, more specifically, I just asked, how many phone calls a day do you get? And it's just, hey, I'm looking for records. Can you email them over?
Yeah, like, hey, we got to drop my dog off at the kennel tomorrow.
I was like, how annoying is that, right? Like, how much of a problem is this? And she's like, about 20 to 30 a day.
Wow.
And so that was the first phone call. And then we just started to talk to other vets, right? And just say like, hey, how many phone calls a day do you get? And the reality is every vet clinic's getting about 20 to 30 phone calls a day, which they're just looking for records.
Yeah.
And on the other side, the kennels are calling vets 20 to 30 times a day looking for records. And so I just say my word of encouragement is if you're sitting on an idea, make a phone call. Call somebody and do some early market discovery. You don't need to write a line of code. You don't need to build a product. You just need to have a conversation. Just be like, can you talk to me about this? Happy to offer some words of advice on a tactical level too of how to do that. But we did about 3 months of just really heavy industry research, and that was all conversation before we invested $1.
And none of them had anything like this.
Yeah, there's nothing that exists. There's nothing that exists today.
All right. So what does it look like, right? So if we're talking about like, how do you guys make money? Like, what is it? Are you guys selling directly to the kennels or directly to the vets and stuff like that?
Yeah. So we have 3 stakeholders. There's the vet, there's the pet, like the kennel, and then there's the pet owner in the middle, right? And so there's 3 stakeholders in our business. It functions like a 2-sided marketplace. And so we charge everybody actually in the ecosystem. And so vets pay a small subscription. They do it. Our frontline pricing is like a nominal $50 a month per DVM. To connect, and we integrate with every EMR system that's used commonly in veterinary medicine. And so with a couple of minutes, we turn on the integration. You can redirect all of those phone calls to VetVerifi, essentially make 20 calls a day go away overnight for a really small subscription fee. And on the other side, it's transactional based. And so we say if you need records, we just charge like a baseline access fee and a really small, every time we fetch a record for you from a veterinarian, it's a really small like per transaction charge. And so it scales as you use it.
Okay.
And in the middle, we had the early market feedback we got was, this is awesome from a B2B standpoint.
Right.
But most folks, especially on the veterinarian side, were just asking us to say, hey, how do you involve the pet owner in this? We actually want to involve our pet owners in the process. So we're just piloting this now. We're piloting a dog tag with a QR code on it that is an instant scan right to your medical record. So if your vet is connected to VetVerifi, you can scan your dog tag and just get your medical record
Okay, that's kind of
instantly.
cool.
Shouldn't be hard. And so we have sort of three, it's the same infrastructure, the same data model, the same data pipeline, but we serve all three stakeholders uniquely, and there's a revenue model assigned to each of those three stakeholders.
So for people watch this now in the future, or listening to this on Spotify or Apple, Music later on, or Apple Podcasts later on, and they're interested, if they're just the user, they can go to vetverify.com and
So
send you
right
a
now,
DM.
I'd say if you are either a kennel or
Yeah.
like you're working at a company that is requesting records often. You work at, I'll give you an example. We were talking to Delta Airlines not too long ago, right?
Oh, no way.
So, like if you work at one of these companies that is often requesting records, go to our website, reach out, happy to help. We have a solve for this. If you work at a vet clinic, anywhere in the vet clinic world, and you're watching this, reach out. We can solve this today. If you're a pet owner and you're like, man, that dog tag thing sounds
Yeah,
cool.
that dog tag actually sounds pretty cool.
It's going to be launching early next year. So right now it's in pilot with we pulled in a group of actually a pretty large group of our friends and folks that were really close to our brand to test it out. And so they've got the first versions of this coming soon to just test it out, give us some feedback. But that market launch is coming early next year. So just stay tuned.
Do you think, I mean, just because I have two pets, some people have like 16 pets. Lily worked with a guy who had like 23 animals. Is this applicable to one dog, to 25 dogs? Like this isn't something that you have to have a lot of animals to use.
So it's the more dogs you have, the more you're going to feel this problem because they are all on different vaccinations.
Well, sure, and that definitely the more animals, I think the more validity around this. But
it really comes to how active you are as a pet owner. And so if I back up, the average pet owner now spends about $2,500 to $3,000 a year now on their pets.
Okay.
What fascinates people is when folks hear that number, they often think that is going to the veterinarian. Only about $350 of that goes to the veterinarian. Okay. So you're talking like 10% of a pet owner spend actually goes to the vet. The rest of it is going to certainly food and nutrition, but also it's going to services, right? They are taking their dog places. And so it's if you are engaging in services and that is a large spend out of your wallet in terms of your average pet care, you will feel this problem because you are going to be asked repeatedly for vet records. And then all the way up to, frankly, we are asked all the time about, and we're not here today. Right now, we're focused on companion animals, but we're asked all the time about equine and horses and cattle and herds.
I have 5 horses.
There you go. We're asked all the time about that. Folks going to horse shows and needing to produce records. And
that's fascinating.
All of that is it's all paper-based industry. So
that's cool. That's cool. So, so this system, did you guys build yourself? I'm assuming.
Great question. So we built it ourselves. We have a really good partner here in Nashville, and I'd shout them out. We use Ackland Avenue. They're here.
Yeah. I know them.
Great partner of ours. They've been fantastic. So they do a lot of our technical engineering help, but we also we work on it ourselves as well. To build our first version of MVP, we also have. We have a go-to-market partner and an investor in a company called Bitworks. They are up in Lexington, Kentucky, and they help us with development and engineering resources as well. They're the market leader in veterinary data integrations.
Interesting.
They're a partner of ours, and so they help us.
Niche right there.
It is a niche. Yeah, and they're a fantastic company, fantastic people. Was up with them this week, visiting their offices in Lexington, and they help us a lot on just like making sure what we deliver from a verification standpoint makes sense. It's clinical, right? It's accurate. I think we're a data verification company, so at a baseline, we must be accurate and scalable.
I love that.
And so we've got some partners that help us out, make sure we achieve those things just out the gate.
I love that. So I know you mentioned obviously a few things kind of on the horizon, the dog tags, the QR code, equine stuff. Is there anything else that you guys are talking about, or maybe any exciting stuff that you guys have on the horizon that you can share? I don't know if you're taking on investment or anything like that. That you want to share.
Yeah, we're on the final stages of closing an investment round.
Congratulations.
Yeah, our approach to fundraising was really unique in the sense that we realized pretty early on we knew what we were doing when it came to data. We had a lot to learn when it came to veterinary medicine. And pet services too. And so our earliest investors and partners were not VC funds. They were all strategics from all corners of the industry.
Mm.
So we have a corporate group in
Mm.
veterinary medicine that's a partner of ours. We have a data integrator, Bitworks, that's a partner of ours. And we have a really big pet resort company that's also a partner of ours and a stakeholder in VetVerifi. And so really our big to-dos are making sure that we've got sort of a really good in with every corner. Let's make sure we execute really, really well. Very specifically, we're super metro focused. And so we have some exciting news on our side. We just were awarded an ARCH grant from the city of St. Louis, which is non-dilutive capital for startups.
Okay.
Really cool program. If you're listening to this and you're looking for a different way to raise money, it's a good one. And so for us, with that grant, it gave us a really big halo in the city of St. Louis to really activate the whole city. And so we have groups on both sides, big vet med groups and big pet services groups that are like, yep, we're in. Let's just connect the whole city. So if you live in St. Louis, we're trying to really like get the metro off the ground and have both sides use it all at the same time. So we can do it at one place. We have a couple other cities. We're working in Portland, Maine. We're working in North Carolina. Working in St. Louis. Working in Northern California and Indianapolis, like pretty aggressively at the moment. And then when we like check off a city, we kind of move to the next one. And we think of our city almost like an Uber and Lyft, right?
I
Like
love that.
very urban based.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I want to ask you this. Now, I know the answer are probably like, yeah, it's easy, but give me the real answer. How easy is it to get this thing integrated at a veterinarian, at a vet or something like that?
Yeah, it is.
Be honest. Be honest.
I'll be honest with you. So the state of veterinary medicine right now is so if you're familiar, and I'll use the human healthcare equivalent, there is a couple of big EMRs, and then there's this long tail of new cloud-based ones. But the big ones are like Epic and Cerner and Athena.
Yeah, I know.
In veterinary medicine, it's very similar, right? They have a couple of really big players: Cornerstone, Avamark, Impromed, and then there's a long tail of newer cloud-based ones with a smaller footprint, like an Easy Vet or a Shepherd or Digitail, or a couple of these. And so the cloud-based ones, it's relatively simple, right? They have open API docs. They're pretty open to the integration conversation. But the big ones that are used by about 75-80% of the market are server-based. Like they're not cloud-based, they are server-based install. And if you think about it, next time you go into your vet, like there's a really good chance their software is running off of a server that's like sitting in the closet covered in dog hair, right?
Covered in dog hair.
Right? Like that is the reality. And so our challenge was to say, gosh, we have to figure out how to integrate with these systems and how to have it be consistent. And I won't give away the secret sauce, but we were able to check that off. It took us a little longer than we thought, for sure.
Okay.
The technology in that industry is behind what we anticipated.
I can't imagine.
No doubt. And but that said, we figured that out with our partner. And we have a couple of partners that help us do this. And we're able to, with a server-based system like a Cornerstone or an Avamark, run a daily refresh of data into our system. So every day, whenever they entered into that system, it updates to the cloud. We pull it into our system so it can be verifiable at midnight that next morning. So it's tough. And on the services side too, the pet services side, it's equally bad, right? So these systems are I'll frame it this way. This is an endeavor that there's a reason no company had taken.
Correct. Yeah, I was literally about to say that. Yeah.
That said, how far we've been able to get with the integrations and the connectivity, we're in the right spot. Sometimes it just takes the right mindset, the right team to tackle this. Our approach was to say we have to lead with integrations. We can't accept files or spreadsheets. And if we just lead with integrated only, it'll force the industry into new patterns of behavior. And that has worked.
I love that. That's awesome. As we wrap up here, want to kind of get out from necessarily VetVerifi and just talk about you as an entrepreneur and some advice
Sure.
for up and coming entrepreneurs. I think there's a lot of companies starting things up. There's a lot of people that want to start things. You left a 9 to 5
Yeah.
to essentially start something. Can you just give some tips and some general thoughts? Maybe somebody watches this now or in the future and they're kind of sitting at a 9 to 5 and have a passion, but are scared to make the jump.
Yeah, man. Oh, this I could go on for 30
I know.
minutes.
I'm sure. I'm
Yeah.
sure.
I'll try to summarize here. It is uh here's what I'll say. I'm trying to figure out what's the
No,
short.
you're good. You're good. If this thing gets a little long winded, there's nothing wrong with that.
It's a lot less scary than you think, right? Now it is scary. There's real fear, there's real sacrifice and cost. And so I'd say, like, figure out, are you at the right life stage for it? Entrepreneurship is hard, right? It's hard. You have to be flexible, you have to have a high risk tolerance. But once you're in it, like, the biggest jump to make is the leaving the 9 to 5. And once you leave the 9 to 5, you can always go back to.
Okay, hold on. I want to talk about this for a second, right? Because like I've been trying to educate people about this more. Like, as long as you don't burn bridges, like, you'll be able to go back. I mean, maybe not that company, but like, you can go find 9 to 5.
Yeah, you go find 9 to 5. Like, the absolute worst case is opportunity cost of income or whatever it might be. But, like, you can go back. So I think folks are just like, I have no safety net. Like, you do. You have a safety net. You can go back to a 9 to 5.
Right.
9 to 5. But the reality is that scariest part of it is taking the first jump and saying, yep, I'm going to do this full time. And once you've done that, your mindset shifts. And then the things that come that are problems or obstacles or whatever they may be, the only thing to do is just to start solving problems, right? That are right in front of you. It is not, you no longer have this like, well, should I do this? Am I going to do this? Am I not going to do this? Like, you've already made that decision. You're doing it. And so now that you're doing it, you just solve the next thing in front of you and keep going. And I'd say so it's just not nearly as scary as folks think. You have an incredible safety net, and just going back to a 9 to 5. You can manage risk, right? So no doubt you're putting in some of your own capital and at least time to get something off the ground.
Sure.
But, like, my goodness, I mean, at one point, so if I personalize this for me,
Sure.
right, I made the leap out of a 9 to 5 and into being, a co-founder of a funded startup in Nashville, right? No one can take that away at this point, right? And so, like, now it becomes the next thing that you do, right? Just sometimes there's so much of this game, which is just like, I am a co-founder of VetVerifi, and just like, once you say that, you just are it.
Right. Yeah.
Right? And then the market just reacts to you that way.
Yeah.
And so it's just take control and take the risk. I'd be the first one to say it's worth it, and it is hard. And make sure you have a really good support system around you, right? Picking your co-founders, really important. Make sure you've got just trust and you can have conflict.
Got to.
Your investors, right? Same thing. Make sure you trust them. Make sure you can have healthy conflict, because there will be a disagreement on the business, right? Yeah. And make sure you have the right people on your cap table. Family and friends, right? Like, understand, like, it takes a hit. You spend less time with family and friends, and just, the real ones will be in your corner, right? The ones that maybe aren't the real ones won't get what you're doing. And it makes explaining what you do at holidays a little challenging, but the reality is it's worth the risk, and you do it once, and then you are a founder, and then you can be a second-time founder and a third-time founder, but you have to be a first-time founder first.
Correct.
Right? You can't skip it, and the only way to do it is to leap. So, man, I'm such a believer in it. I'm happy to if you're watching this, you have questions about that, or just want some specific information, happy to offer some. But I'm the first one to say, like, my gosh, take the risk. There really isn't that much downside.
Yeah, agreed. Thomas comes in here. Good morning. Thomas, good to see you, man. How important is it to have an idea to start with, and what were the indicators that you were ready to jump?
Cool, man. That's a great question, Thomas.
I mean, I think it's probably a good idea to have an idea before you go. I mean, it's probably a good idea.
So, yeah, I would say it's less the idea. So here's what I'll say. The idea that you have is almost never what it ends up being. And the only way, but making the leap on the idea alone, when you know that, if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, if the idea is never what it's actually going to end up being in reality, don't make the leap on the idea. Make the leap on market discovery and just set a goal on what that looks like and say, I want to take this idea and have 50 conversations with people across the market. You can do that while you have a 9 to 5.
100%.
Right?
100%.
You can do that. It is not
have one discovery call a day, and that's what?
Do it over lunch for a month.
months.
There you go. Do it over lunch for a month.
Yeah.
Have coffee once a day for a month. Like, you can do this while you have a 9 to 5. And you can get 30, right? If you do it one a day for a month, you get 30 discovery points or 25 discovery points. That will then help you morph what this thing actually is, right? You have an idea, you validate, right? And you're trying to prove, somebody told me once, you're trying to prove the null hypothesis, right? So you're trying to find reasons why this is a bad idea, right? Who's telling me not to do this? And listen to that. And if the market just overwhelmingly is like, my gosh, yeah, this is a real problem. I would pay for this. I really want this solved. Then it's time to start investing and figuring out how and what that looks like for your specific business is unique, right? And you gotta make some calls on what that looked like for us, right? We were able to side hustle. We paid out of pocket, right, for development partners to help us while we still had 9 to 5s. But it was a really good use of time because we could completely do our jobs with excellence and know that we had hired a team to work, and help us get the first thing at least started off the ground. And so for us, that became a big part of our story. But the indicators that we were ready to jump, it all comes back to market discovery. If the market is telling you, yes, this is a problem, yes, I will solve it, that's the indicator that you really have something, not your idea.
I love that. That's awesome. Well, y'all, thank you again, Thomas. Thank you for that question. I appreciate y'all hanging out. Man, thank you again for hanging out. I really appreciate it. David, means a lot. Any last comments, man? Just leaving it with you. Where can people find you? Any last words of encouragement to founders? Just leaving it to you here to wrap it up.
Yeah, I'd say the last thing I'd say is find people that are like, find the folks that are going to encourage you on in that journey. Like,
I think that's huge, man. I think that's huge.
Whether that's in your ecosystem, and maybe it's not in the ecosystem, but I would say, like, if you're in Nashville, as an example, dip into your Nashville ecosystem. If you're in St. Louis, dip into the Arch Grants ecosystem, right? And find the people that are doing like-minded things that can encourage and cheer you on. That is a really big thing. I promise you, if you're sitting at home and you're watching this and you have an idea and you're like, I want to start my company, you're not the only one trying to navigate the exact same things you are. And there are people and processes and resources for you to dip into. Now, you can swing too far that way and get caught in a lot of talk and not a lot of action, right? But my advice to you is to find those resources, tap in, and find yourself a network, like almost like build a cohort of 3 to 5 entrepreneurs that are also starting companies that are kind of in your stage. Doesn't even have to be in your industry. And just swapping back and forth. Often what I have found, if you do that well, sometimes those people are your first customers. It is the tech enthusiasts that are like, I want to give these folks a try. And so that networking and building your like ecosystem of trust and support becomes really critical early on.
There you go. David brought it up. I did not. Network, have community. Incredibly important. Sweet. All right, Dave. Well, thank you, my friend. Stay on real quick. Say about you. Thank you again for everybody who watching. Thank you, Thomas, for your question. And I think we got another one next week. Let me see. Yes, we got another one next week. Really excited. I think it was another Kelly Griggs connection, Neil Granberry. I'm catching up with Neil next week. So y'all have a good one. We'll see y'all next Thursday. Peace.
Awesome.